Hello and welcome to Odds on La Liga Match Day 2. We saw every single team in La Liga and we can say, Alvaro Romeo, that you were absolutely right. Barcelona right now are the best so far. They thrashed Mallorca away and we had the first big surprise, Atlético Madrid losing when they were leading 1-0 at 𝐻𝐭𝐤𝐬 against Espanyol.
Yeah, that was the biggest surprise, definitely. Atlético de Madrid losing, also because they scored the first goal in that game with a lovely free kick from Julián Álvarez. And then Diego Simeone decided to do a few changes that absolutely transformed the dynamic of the game, and Espanyol profited from it. I mean, this is the debate that we've been having over the last 6-7 years. Why is Simeone not looking for the second goal? Why does he manage for his team to score one goal and then he doesn't go for the second, considering that Atlético de Madrid doesn't have such a great defense? There is a risky element in scoring a 1-0 and then defending it. There is a risky element if your defense is not really good. And Atlético doesn't have Godín and Miranda and Juanfran and Felipe Luis at the back, not anymore. So, these things can happen to them. Simeone said that he learned the lesson, and, that was probably the most remarkable game of game week 1. I will say as well that there are a few things that caught my attention. Number one, that Rayo Vallecano and Athletic de Bilbao scored 3 goals each as well, like Barcelona. Especially in the case of Rayo Vallecano, they were playing away. It was very impressive, but Girona just made a lot of individual mistakes, especially 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐻𝐿. And also, there is no player so far with more than 1 goal or more than 1 assist. So hopefully this weekend, the best players will wake up and start being properly ruthless. I could see though that Kylian Mbappé is here to make a difference. I mean, summer has been no summer for Real Madrid. They were playing in the United States a month ago. They had no pre-season, but he looked very sharp against Osasuna and he made the goal for himself.
Probably he's going to be the top scorer of the competition. We mentioned in the first match day, so it's a good idea to bet on him. I want to talk about 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐻𝐿's mistakes actually later on. So a lot to talk about in this first match day La Liga. You showed us a lot of love in our previous video. So please press the like, subscribe if you enjoy our videos. It means a lot to us. And now let's go on with the show. Well, Alvaro, let's start with the games. With the game we have on Friday, Betis, Alavés. Alavés got important 3 points with a win against Levante 2-1. Tenaglia scored the winner at the extra time, and Betis probably a bit disappointing the draw against the newly promoted team Elche. I'm sure they are gonna miss a lot 𝐿𝐭𝐴, and this is a work in progress team. Still 10 days to close the market, so I'm sure they are gonna get something in this summer window.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, nothing big has happened for Betis in terms of signings in the last 7 days. Something will happen. I think that they are gonna recruit one player at least who will go straight into the starting lineup. But, we have to wait and see. Right now it's the 20th of August, 11 days left. But, Betis wasn't too bad against Elche, in my opinion. They scored first, a lovely goal by 𝗷𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, by the way, just rounding away the goalkeeper and just putting it in the net. But, starting the weekend or the La Liga with a draw away from home for Betis is something that is not too bad either, I think. When it comes to Alavés, they were better than their opponent last weekend, that's for sure. I believe that Levante look a little bit rusty still in La Liga. Alavés knew what they were doing. Tenaglia, he scored the last gasp winner. But it's not only that. Physically, they look sharp, and I was very surprised with the words of the midfielder Pablo Ibáñez. He plays for Alavés, and in an interview after the game against Levante, said that the pre-season with 𝐻𝐭𝐭'𝐬 has been really hard from the physical point of view. He said that he never had such a physically demanding training sessions as he did have this summer. So maybe Alavés will have a really strong start from what you hear from the players. Physically they are sharp because they work really hard. And all that said, I believe that Betis is a slightly favorite for this game. I'm not going to extend myself on the reasons why, but they are playing at home. I think that they will be similar to the team that we saw in the second half of the season, last season. And, following that logic, I'm going to back them. Betis to win doesn't pay a lot of money, really, because if you check the odds, it's 183. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. But if you really want to go for a bigger value, you should go for something way more specific. Like, for example, Betis winning the second half. That will pay 225. But since both teams are still not... one of the teams, Betis, is not 100%, and the other one, Alavés, is playing away, this game could well be, for me, a pass. I think the money is to be made somewhere else, and I will continue with this as the show goes by.
All right, let's try to look for better odds. Mallorca Celta is the next one. Here we have really high odds for all the outcomes, and the bookies placed Celta as favorites despite the defeat against Getafe. It was a surprise, but you mentioned also in our preview, be careful with Getafe. Celta had the possession, some chances, not too many, and they ended up losing and getting into Getafe's trap. We saw 𝐬𝐭𝐴 in the pitch together with 𝗪𝗀𝗟 or 𝐿𝐴𝐻, for instance, in the starting 11, and Mallorca, Alvaro, without a chance against Barcelona. They conceded very early the first goal, the second one very controversial, also very early, and then two players sent off that cannot play this game. Especially is very important, the absence of 𝗵𝗵𝗀.
Yeah, exactly. Morlanes and 𝗵𝗵𝗀 are missing this game. That makes me think that Celta may have a bigger chance in the islands for that reason. I think Mallorca, defensively, they look okay in the second half, playing with 9 players against Barcelona, but it's true that, number one, it was very hot. Number two, Barcelona, for some reason, took the foot off the accelerator and didn't want to hurt Mallorca more. I don't understand why. Hansi Flick didn't like it, but luckily for Mallorca, they didn't concede more than 3 goals. I mean, considering that they lost the first half 2-0 and they lost 2 players in the first half, you really have to say that losing 3-0 at the end of the game against Barcelona wasn't as catastrophic as it looked like it was going to be. But yeah, Mallorca are missing, especially 𝗵𝗵𝗀. That's the problem. And with Saïd Larin still, not training with the squad, having burned the bridge with Arrasate, Saïd Larin will be the deputy number 9. The other one is 𝗵𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗀, but I don't think that, he's got the level of 𝗵𝗵𝗀. I'm going to back Celta. Celta was not outplayed against Getafe, but Celta showed that they had some problems defensively. I think they were very soft defending a couple of actions, especially the first goal of Getafe. They have improved. They must improve, and I think that they can maybe get a result here, just because Mallorca are missing players. But Mallorca weren't bad either against Barcelona, I have to say that, in the second half. But anyway, for this game, maybe the money is in the draw no bet for Celta, 174. That can be good. Otherwise, this can be an under. I think Mallorca is the type of team that defends still really well. That is some heritage from the Javier Aguirre time. Arrasate is defensively a very good coach as well. I can see Mallorca, for example, defending deep at some points against Celta, because Celta doesn't like that. Celta likes counter-attacking, Celta likes transitions. So I'm going to go for the under. I think this will be my favorite bet. Under 2.25 goals, 173. The money is good, and also mind the temperatures in here. It's at 4 p.m. this game in Mallorca. The other day, playing late, it was really hot in Mallorca. Let's see what happens this time.
Indeed, well, 5 local time, so probably better time to be by the beach if you are in Mallorca than watching this game at the stadium. Next game probably is going to be also hot in Madrid. 7:30, Atlético de Madrid. Elche, we have the three big clubs playing against really underdogs, so really low odds in this match day too. Really favorite, of course, Atlético de Madrid, 1.27. You mentioned how Simeone said he learned from the mistakes after losing against Espanyol, but we saw that book many times last season, and Atlético de Madrid dropping points again and again away from home against rivals that they should beat. Although, if we want to take the positives, Alvaro, the first 50, 60 minutes were good. We saw, of course, Julián Álvarez, top-notch quality player, scoring a beauty, hitting the post, and also some good combinations between Thiago Almada, Baena, Gallagher in this midfield. So some greens for Atlético de Madrid. Also very positive, the draw, the point for Elche in the return to Primera División.
Yeah, definitely. But, starting with Atlético de Madrid, I think that, you have to do things better. You have to be more ruthless. You have to look for the second goal. You cannot just score one and after 65, 70 minutes just do so many changes at the same time, because basically he removed Thiago Almada and Alex Baena in the 68th minute, and then when the game was still 1-1, he decided to remove his best player. I'm talking about Simeone. Simeone removed Julián Álvarez, and he brought in Sorloth. So you really need to score the second goal before calling it a day. And this is for me the key for Atlético de Madrid. They look okay in the first half. They played well. As you said, Julián hit the post in the hour mark, more or less, with a lovely team effort that would have killed off the game effectively. That didn't happen, and then Espanyol found the way to come back into the game. But, I think Atlético de Madrid, and this is a story that we have seen before. At home, they are a different story. At home, perhaps, not that the crowd is way more demanding, but Simeone knows that the crowd has to be pleased, and he knows that most of the teams, when they play away against a big side, they don't attack as much. So that's why I believe that Atlético de Madrid here is going to be way more ruthless against Elche than they were against Espanyol. Elche drew against Betis in the first in the first game of the season. There was a full attendance to watch the first game of the season at Martínez Valero. By the way, there is a huge expectation from Elche fans, which is a great thing. They also got themselves Redondo, the son of Fernando Redondo, one of the best midfielders of all time, I would say. Fernando Redondo, people will remember him. And Elche has brought in his son, who will play, by the way, with the number 5. But anyway, I think that this game is plain and simple. Atletico de Madrid is better than Elche. Atletico de Madrid is a wounded animal because they lost the first game of the season, and I think that they are going to win. So I'm going to back them with these odds. Asian handicap minus 1.5 for Atletico, 182. That means that I believe that Atletico is going to win by 2 goals or more. Then there is a bet that normally I use a lot in the Champions League when there is a massive difference between the home side and the away side, but I could use here, which is Atletico to win at 30 minutes. It pays 210, even though I prefer, again, Asian handicap minus 1.5 for Atletico, because my bet is about 90 minutes, so there is a smaller element of risk. And also, you have to back individually Julián Álvarez at this point. I mean, I'm going to back Julián Álvarez, Kylian Mbappé, and Lamine Yamal a lot this season. So now, particularly in this game, we're talking about Julián Álvarez. Him to score or assist, it pays 195.
Well, another big favorite, Barcelona playing away again because Camp Nou is not ready yet to host games. We have Barcelona playing in Valencia against Levante, a newly promoted team that lost 2-1 in the last minute, as we said before, in the return to Primera in Vitoria against Alavés. But let's talk a bit about Barcelona. Alvaro, you mentioned how they could have scored plenty more against Mallorca, but I understand them. Of course, it was hot, the first game of the season, so they just put off the foot from the gas, but it was a shiny start, I would say, especially from Lamine Yamal. We all expect a lot from him. He was in the media all around summer because of his holidays, but when he is down to work, he scored a beauty. He gave one assist, so it was a perfect performance, I would say, for Barcelona in their start of the season.
Yeah, one of the main differences between Lamine Yamal now and a year ago is that I have the feeling that Lamine Yamal is going to score in the games. Before, I knew that he was going to play beautifully. For me, by far, he's the most entertaining player in La Liga, and this is a matter of taste. But for me, he's the best player in the world. Lamine Yamal at the minute. Spain is really lucky to have him. He basically produces so much on the right wing, and he's aesthetically so pleasing as well. But a season ago, Lamine Yamal came onto the pitch to make a difference, but not necessarily to score. I think right now he's looking for the goal with eagerness too, and he did so, for example, against Mallorca. And in the pre-season, you could see, obviously, the opponents weren't of the highest quality. Lamine Yamal was scoring a lot of goals. So Lamine to score is going to be to score or assist is going to be one of my usual bets this season. He's so important for Barcelona. He set up Rafinha in one of the goals. He scored his goal. He is always there to make the difference, and he's a real torment for the left back. It's true that Barcelona was granted in Mallorca a few opportunities to win, because I think Rafinha should have been sent off. Mainly, I think that this is the most controversial part of the game against Mallorca. I don't think Rafinha's action just to stop a counter-attack was deserving a yellow card. I think that it was a red card. But anyway, other than that, I also stick to the words of Hansi Flick. We know that Hansi Flick is a manager that likes scoring a lot of goals and likes intensity and likes positive football. I will never forget that Barcelona lost 8-2 against Hansi Flick's Bayern, with Philippe Coutinho scoring goals. This is Hansi Flick. Hansi Flick wants more. He wants more goals, and Barcelona last season did what he wanted. This season, at least in Mallorca, Barcelona slowed down a little bit, and Hansi Flick didn't appreciate that. So I think Barcelona will, if they listen to the manager, they should be more ruthless. So I think that here at Levante, against the team that lost in the last minute against Alavés the other day, against Levante is going to score goals, and against Levante is going to attack. So I could go for the following. If there is any safe bet in this game, it could be something like over 1.5 goals in the second half, because we know that the games of Barcelona have a lot of goals. But I prefer to go for the following, a mini ACCA in this game. It will be Barcelona to score over 2.5 goals, not over 2.5 goals in the game, no. I'm saying Barcelona to score over 2.5 goals, plus Lamine Yamal to score in this game. Altogether, 4. That would be my favorite bet, and just one tiny chapter for Joan Garcia. I think it was okay against Mallorca, and it was very important for him, I believe, to start with a clean sheet. I'm talking about the new goalkeeper of Barcelona.
Well, huge odds, but if we see a similar game as the one we saw in Mallorca, you would be right. Actually, Barcelona scoring at least 3 goals, and Lamine Yamal involved in one of those goals. Next game is very open. Osasuna, Valencia, odds here are high in general, but Osasuna are favorites playing at home. Probably not because of the things we saw in the last game of Matchday 1, Real Madrid Osasuna. Osasuna, they didn't even try. It's true that they only lost 1-0 because of a penalty, but they didn't attack, they didn't try. 𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴 in the game. Valencia drew with Real Sociedad. I wouldn't discard another draw actually here, Alvaro.
No. I mean, this game is the kind of game in which I wouldn't invest my money. I want to wait and see. It's true, Osasuna at Santiago Bernabéu was compact defensively, that's for sure, but then going forward didn't offer much. It's true that at the end they had a chance, but you had the feeling that if it wasn't Budimir, no one was going to score. Also, Aimar Oroz is a player that I thought that by this point he would be scoring more goals, but he hasn't quite made that step forward yet. But against Real Madrid, Real Madrid kept Osasuna very far away from 𝐻𝐵𝗷 𝗀𝐻𝐿 to the point that 𝐻𝐵𝗷 𝗀𝐻𝐿 didn't have to do any save. Coming into this game, Valencia drew with Real Sociedad in game week 1. I think that this is the kind of game in which it's difficult to bet. I mean, there is an option, there is always an option, which is going for chasing odds, which is something that is not particularly my style, but I know that some tipster likes, because, there is an element of risk, but the reward is high. So, for example, the draw could fit in that category somehow, because the draw pays 330. Otherwise, you just have to go to the over and under and check what the odds are like. I think that the bookies expect this to be a low scoring game. So you just have to challenge that and go for over 2 goals, for example. That will pay 170. It wouldn't be a safe bet, but the element of risk is not that massive and it will pay 170. But I would perfectly understand if tipsters in this case, and I repeat, this is not my style, but I know that some people use this style and works for them. If you go for the draw and you end up thinking, yes, there is a big chance of having a draw because these teams are paired up, and if I win it, I win 3.20, 3.30. I understand that strategy, but this game for me is a pass. I think that, for example, at this start of the season, when we still don't know what the style of the teams is, when some players still are adapting because there have been signings, at this point of the season, in this kind of games, I prefer not to take risks. I prefer to start maybe taking these risks after the international break.
Okay, 3 match days actually we have until the international break. Next game is Real Sociedad Espanyol. Positive first game, I would say, for both of them. Real Sociedad with the new manager post Imanol era. They got a draw in Mestalla, not bad, with 𝐻𝐿, of course, their best player scoring the goal. And what to say about Espanyol? Great fight spirit, and what a goal, Alvaro. Scored by 𝐜𝐵𝗷𝗍. I don't know if he wanted to put the ball there with an impossible header. Probably he did want to do that, but it was almost impossible. Probably the XG of the action was 0.05 or something like this.
Negative XG for sure. Some say that that was the kind of header that Santillana, a former Real Madrid player, was capable of producing. I think that it was a great execution. You really need to be a top player with a lot of strength in your muscles to produce something like that. I remember a goal from Luis Garcia playing for Liverpool that reminded me a little bit of that one. But yeah, it was a great way to start the season for Espanyol, a team that finished last season in a very strong fashion. They lost the goalkeeper, yes, Joan Garcia, but Dimitrovic, I think that is a good replacement. And, the team was solid, resilient, competitive, and they didn't throw the towel when Julián Álvarez scored the first goal in the first half. So Espanyol did a massive display of resistance against Atlético de Madrid. And that's why I'm going to reward them coming into this game with an Asian handicap plus 0.25 in the first half. So if they drew the first half, you will get half a win. If they won the first half, you will get a win. I'm not saying that Espanyol necessarily will win here. I'm saying that maybe Real Sociedad, the team that starts slowly, will find it difficult in the first half to bite Espanyol. When it comes to Real Sociedad, maybe the most positive thing, apart from the goal from 𝐻𝐿, is the fact that 𝗵𝗂𝗍 completed 90 minutes in the league. I'm saying this because he hadn't completed 90 minutes in the last 4 years. It's incredible, but it's true. So having a player like this who, I believe that he's still a young, attractive prospect, is very important. But anyway, we have to wait and see with Sergio Francisco's Real Sociedad. I believe that the squad is still a little bit short as well. But, coming into this game, I will go for something like that. Yeah, maybe an Asian handicap plus 0.25 for Espanyol in the first half. But I prefer, honestly, the odds for our next game, Villarreal Girona.
Well, they lost a lot of quality players, as we said in the previous video, but 𝗵𝗂𝗍, Oyarzábal, Bryce, and 𝐻𝐻𝐿 doesn't sound that bad, indeed, for Real Sociedad. The next game is Villarreal Girona, as you said. Well, I think 𝗛𝗏𝗏's performance, Alvaro, was one of the worst I've ever seen in La Liga. So two goals were just given to Rayo Vallecano by him. Then also the red card. I don't know. I'm not saying, of course, that he's going to bet on against his own team or against himself. But how a professional football player can perform bad as this? I would be surprised, actually, if he's back in the goal in a couple of weeks, because was pitiful, was really bad start for Girona. They took it where they left it last season. So struggling, suffering, playing bad, giving away goals, in this case to Rayo Vallecano. And talking about penalties also, Villarreal suffered one against Oviedo. We will talk about Oviedo later, but also probably is one of the worst penalties I've ever seen, taken by Salomón Rondón, and Villarreal was able to win, and we saw 𝐜𝐭𝐿, for instance, in the score sheet.
Yeah, we did. Look, I believe that this game is better for betting. I'm gonna back goals here. I think that over 2.75 goals, 183 is something that I fancy. I think that this game can easily be 2-1, 3-1, 3-0. You know, basically go over 3 goals. I can see this happening. Just very quickly on 𝗛𝗏𝗏, I think that even if he didn't get a red card, wouldn't have gotten a red card in the first game of the season, I think that his performance disqualified him to play for a while for Girona. In the same way, and I don't know why I remember this case, but 𝗛𝗏𝗏 took me to Tyrone Mings. I remember that last season in the Champions League, he did a very silly mistake, just getting the ball with his hands inside the box in a free kick. In a free kick, basically, he made that mistake, and Aston Villa had a penalty against them. In this case, 𝗛𝗏𝗏 has made the same kind of mistake. Tyrone Mings was out from the lineup for a while, and I think 𝗛𝗏𝗏 should be too. Last season, he already made a few big mistakes. I remember him, for example, in Paris, when Girona was about to hold Paris Saint-Germain with a 0-0 draw. He did a mistake at the end. So, you know, you cannot do that. Individual mistakes cannot cost you so much, especially from the goalkeeper. Girona is going to be also affected by the fact that one of their best players, Miguel Gutiérrez, was sold to Napoli. He is on his way to Napoli to play under Antonio Conte. So, you know, not the best thing for them, but I'm sure that they will find a replacement, because Girona has the possibility of, you know, working in the Manchester City group. I'm sure that they've got a pool of players they can resort to. But anyway, I think Villarreal is going to win here. The old story became young again. Gerard Moreno picked an injury. He's going to be back apparently after the international break. Before picking an injury, he played well. I think Gerard Moreno is still a very good striker, but he is always picking injuries. Then it was good to see a scorer like 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗀 scoring for Villarreal. Everyone is talking about this boy from Cameroon. He scored 19 goals for Villarreal B last season. And I think that under Miguel Álvarez, he improved a lot at Villarreal B. And then, you know, maybe Villarreal get themselves Renato Vega, which will be amazing, because he's a good footballer. He has played for Chelsea, he's still young, and with 𝗀𝗏𝗏 and Logan Costa injured, Villarreal needs another centre-back or another defender. But anyway, for this game, given Villarreal's attacking-minded football and Girona's bad defensive performances and defensive struggles, I'm going to go for over 2.75 goals, 183.
Goals and goals. Well, next game, first game at the Carlos Tartiere, with Oviedo coming back to Primera División. Oviedo, Real Madrid, and what a game to be back to Primera División indeed, hosting Real Madrid. Well, with Oviedo, not many positives. They probably deserve to lose at the Villarreal Stadium, but, well, they could have taken the lead, but Rondón kicked the penalty really awfully It was really bad taken. Rondon, that has always been a robust player, Alvaro, but I think he's fat, actually, apart from being robust. And from Real Madrid, it was a boring game, a bad game, I would say, against Osasuna. The positives, Kylian Mbappé, and probably the defense, Heisen and Carreras. And on the negative, probably Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think we all expect Carvajal at one point replacing Trent. And perhaps we see Mastantuono from the beginning, because we didn't see much from Brahim, and Xabi Alonso looks like he's in love with Franco Mastantuono, Alvaro.
And there are a lot of expectations for this boy. Yesterday I was watching the game against Osasuna, and I could see, I could listen, I could hear that there is an expectation about this player, Franco Mastantuono. Let's see how he does. He could also play where 𝗛𝗲𝗻𝐻𝐿 plays, I believe. I think that it's either Brahim's or 𝗛𝗲𝗻𝐻𝐿's position, the one that Franco Mastantuono could take. Very quickly on 𝗛𝗲𝗻𝐻𝐿, I think that he's a good footballer. He so far has the impact that Marco Asensio had at the time, a player who could score goals and assists, but he didn't round off 90 minutes of good football. I believe that 𝗛𝗲𝗻𝐻𝐿 is dangerous when he is at the edge of the box. He's got a good pass, a good shot, but he's not an organizer. If Xabi Alonso wants to make of him a new 𝐬𝐭𝐴∞, that's not going to happen, I think, unless 𝗛𝗲𝗻𝐻𝐿 changes a lot. Really, I don't think that this is going to work in the long run if 𝗛𝗲𝗻𝐻𝐿 is in charge of making Real Madrid play. I think 𝗛𝗲𝗻𝐻𝐿 so far is a player of actions every now and then, rather than a player who makes the team play. He doesn't set the tempo of the game. Okay? Then Real Madrid defensively played with two center-backs, Edu. You know, at some point we spoke about, will Real Madrid play with two or three center-backs? Well, at home against Osasuna, played with two center-backs. Let's see how they play away at Manchester City, for instance. But, you know, this time they played with Militao and Hausen. Thibaut Courtois didn't have to do any save. It's true that Osasuna didn't attack a lot either. And Real Madrid needed to win, and they did win. I think that Mbappé is a galaxy away from the rest of the attackers right now. Vinicius looked to me like a player who didn't have a fifth gear. He barely managed to leave players behind against Osasuna. It's true that Osasuna defended him very well, but Mbappé was a different story. His acceleration was different. He made the penalty for himself and he scored it, and he's the leader. I remember that a year ago, Vinicius, Bellingham and Mbappé just shared the responsibility of scoring the penalties. Do you remember that? Now it's Kylian Mbappé. You know that, and we know that Mbappé is going to be the penalty taker unless he is generous and he gives it to someone else. So Mbappé, little by little, has become the leader. At the end of the day, he scored over 40 goals last season, and that makes you a leader. And when it comes to Oviedo, look, not the best start in La Liga after 20 plus years, but it's true that Rondon could have scored that penalty when the score was still 0-0. Also, there are things that should remind us. Number one, that Oviedo, you know, have to improve slightly defensively, and true that Villarreal is a very attacking-minded team, is the fact that Aaron Escandel, the goalkeeper of Oviedo, did 8 saves. He was the busiest goalkeeper in game week 1. That's why I went for Villarreal to score that many goals. One signing that Oviedo has done, though, it's interesting and it's good, I would say. They have signed Den Donker. Do you remember Leander Den Donker from Wolverhampton Wanderers? They signed him for 2 seasons. He has earned 35 caps for Belgium. He's not that old, only 30 years old, and he played a lot for Anderlecht last season. So well done to Oviedo for bringing a player of this quality. You know, for this game, I'm going to go for the following. I think that Mbappé is going to score again. That pays 188. But more importantly, I think that Oviedo and Carlos Tartiere, the ground of Oviedo, will be, you know, just screaming this game, because they are back in La Liga against Real Madrid. This is beautiful for him. They've been anticipating this moment so much. I think that Oviedo can score at least 1 goal. And the money is so good that I'm going to back that. Oviedo to score 1 goal or more, 2.0.
Well, a great game to be back in La Liga for Oviedo. First game at home, hosting Real Madrid. Still work in progress, this Real Madrid, far, far away from what Xabi Alonso wants. Next game, a very interesting one. On Monday, we have Athletic Rayo Vallecano. Probably both teams were beyond their expectations in match day one. The games were really entertaining, probably the best ones in the previous weekend, especially the Athletic Sevilla 3-2. The game was completely under control by Athletic, with Nico Williams making the difference, but Sevilla came back with two great goals, and at the end, Alvaro Navarro got the winner. So well done for Athletic. Also great for Rayo Vallecano. This game has a caveat. Rayo Vallecano, remember, are playing in Europe, so they are playing on Thursday against a team that I've never heard about, Alvaro, Neman Grodno. So let's see if this affects Rayo Vallecano.
It could affect, definitely in the long run. Rayo looked very sharp in game week 1, that's for sure. But Athletic, at times against Sevilla, looked good too. The Athletic didn't have the best pre-season, losing many games, but at the same time, they did something which is, at the end, intelligent, I think. They decided to have quality opponents, the likes of Arsenal, the likes of Liverpool. They lost those games, but on the other hand, they got a little bit of a hint of how playing Champions League football will be for them. So, fast forward a couple of weeks, they were playing at home against Sevilla. It wasn't easy. The best version of Nico Williams was needed. At some point, Sevilla got an equalizer, 2-2, and Athletic needed also to attack a lot in the last minutes of the game to end up winning it. But anyway, for this game, I think that Athletic de Bilbao is the favorite. I think Rayo is a great team for their standards and for the money they've got. They've got a great manager, who, by the way, comes from the Athletic de Bilbao youth ranks. But if you check the latest results between Athletic de Bilbao and Rayo Vallecano, Athletic has beaten Rayo repeatedly, 4-0 and 1-0 in the 23-24 season, and 2-1 and 3-1 in the 24-25 season. For some reason, Valverde has been capable of doing this to Íñigo Pérez's side. Lately, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but the money will be, rather than Athletic winning it, it will be Asian handicap -1 for Athletic. So if they win the game by 1 goal, you just don't get any money, but you don't lose either. But if they win by more than 1 goal, then you will win 235. I could go for Asian handicap -1 for Athletic de Bilbao, or, make it slightly safer with an Asian handicap -0.75 for Athletic de Bilbao. And of course, Nico Williams, we have to speak about him. He started the season in a great fashion. 8 dribbles, the most completed in game week 1 by the brother of Iñaki.
Was it a penalty, or was it a very stupid penalty, right?
It was one of these soft penalties. It's true that when a player is just sprinting forward and gets a slight touch behind, normally that player loses balance. So I think that was the criteria from the referee. But yeah, I can understand why some Sevilla fans would be, unhappy about the decision.
Well, let's talk about Sevilla. It's the last game. Sevilla Getafe, as we said, lost against Athletic. At one point, it looked like it could have been way worse for Sevilla. 2-0 down. Athletic hit the post, but out of nowhere, they scored 2 goals, 2 beauties, especially 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐵𝐶𝐿's one. It was a great goal, Alvaro. When I used to play Pro Evolution Soccer, I remember just touching the R2 while pressing the square and scoring a great goal. He did, and you can see, the level of nervousness that there is around Sevilla, I think, in the way they celebrated the goal, also on the bench in match day 1. And now probably they are going to be even more nervous facing Getafe. It's not the team that you want to face when you are playing at home. It's like going to the dentist, as Bordalás showed us. In Vigo, they have so many players. I was reading, Alvaro, last year they were playing in 3rd-tier division, 4th-tier division, 2nd-tier division. They have like 13 available players, and then you go to Vigo, one tough stadium, and you win And actually, 𝐿𝐿 looked like Lukaku at one point.
Well, his performance against Celta was definitely phenomenal. I think that 𝐿𝐿 is the kind of player that has given Getafe much more than probably Getafe expected from him. But the key about Getafe was maximizing the details. I mean, how they took the ball away from Celta's left back in the first goal, how they defended at the end of the game, how they made every chance of Celta to be a half chance. That is the thing that I like about Getafe the most. I remember that Celta looked like they could have an opportunity here or there. They managed to get sometimes, not many times, into favorable positions for shooting, and there was always a leg from a Getafe player. There was something, always a defensive unit on top of someone. Just making that chance that Celta was going to have, turning it into a half chance. This is the greatest asset of Getafe, and they did it very well. Then when it comes to Sevilla, look at Bilbao, they weren't terrible. I think that for 20 minutes in the second half, they took Athletic de Bilbao from the scruff of the neck. It's true that in the first half, Athletic de Bilbao had dominated. But, Sevilla has this new manager, Almeida, who seems to not know much yet about Sevilla's idiosyncrasy, even though he played for them, but still, that was 20 plus years ago. And Almeida seems to be a little bit an outsider when it comes to that. He just wants to do a great job at Sevilla. He's not a local man like Joaquín Caparrós, and that is in a way good for Sevilla, I would say. But they need to hit a three-pointer soon. And if they don't win or if they don't beat Getafe, the crowd is going to get impatient. But anyway, there are a few positives for Sevilla. Of course, the quality of the wingers with 𝐿𝐿, 𝐿𝐿𝐿, those are players who are dangerous and fast, and the best of them is 𝐿𝐿, of course. But yeah, Sevilla is still a work in progress, and they may lose as well 𝗵𝗵𝗍, who is ready to sign for Bayer Leverkusen. In the past, 5-6 years ago, it was normally Sevilla who was getting players from this type of teams in Bundesliga. But Sevilla has a new financial reality. Anyway, for this game, it's almost a pass for me, because Sevilla, again, too many new managers in La Liga. Sevilla, again, I need to see them more, but I like them for 20 minutes in Bilbao, that's for sure. But Getafe, obviously, knows better what they are doing, because they've got a way more consolidated style of play. So maybe a double chance for Getafe, 161 would be interesting. Draw no bet for Getafe pays a lot, actually. In particular, 225. But the first half market can be something that our listeners could be happy about. So, for example, maybe Getafe getting something like a draw in the first half, a 204 could be interesting too. But this game, again, is not my favorite to bet.
All right. Well, Alvaro, this is the end of our video, match day 2. By the way, I wanted to tell you that we had an interview with Claude Makélélé. You mentioned before Fernando Redondo, and also Makélélé was in his position. What a legend from Real Madrid and Chelsea. So go to the Oddspedia website and check it out. We are going to leave the link also below. In the description, he's going to talk about Chelsea, I think also about Real Madrid, about everything. An absolute legend, Makélélé. I used to love him playing for the Galácticos, for Real Madrid. Actually, the team collapsed when he left the club. And also, before we leave you with Álvaro Safe Bet and ACCA, remember that we have our tipster competitions going on. It's completely free to participate, and you can earn some money, and you have also rivals at your disposal where you can play with your friends, create your own tipster competitions. Well, Álvaro, our international ACCA was correct last week, I must say. So let's try another one. Let's go with your safe bet.
Yeah, it will be Asian handicap -1 for Atlético de Madrid, 138.
And your ACCA?
Well, I said an ACCA before, inside Barcelona's game will be Barcelona to score over 2.5 goals and Lamine Yamal to score, that pays 4. Also, my second ACCA will be Asian handicap minus 1.5 for Atlético, Asian handicap minus 1.5 for Barcelona. So both of them winning by 2 goals or more. Total of 305.
Thank you, Alvaro. Thanks everyone for watching. Let's enjoy La Liga. Bye bye.
Bye bye.